in the passage we have read,
Dans le passage que nous venons de lire,
one truth stands out.
une vérité est clairement présentée.
That the spiritual life of a community
À savoir que la vie spirituelle d'une communauté
depends on the leaders.
dépend de ses dirigeants.
The Bible says Israel served the Lord.
La Bible dit que Israël avait servi le Seigneur.
At the 32nd night of the Prayer and Fasting Crusade 2024, Brother Theodore introduced a new chapter, the revivals in the Old Testament, and specifically the revivals in Judges, which he called leadership revival. To put it simply, the central theme in these revivals is when God finds a man, he can walk. However, as a way of transitioning from the Overcomers revival, which he had dwelt on for the past few days, the leader led the saints to pray that each one would take time before God, that the saints all over the ministry will allow God to do his own talk, that they will learn from God the knowledge of themselves as God knows it, that each will hear from the Lord what they have in their favor and the one or two things he has against them. He substantiated this with the example of King Saul in the book of 1 Chronicles, chapter 10, verses 13 and 14. He explained that Saul had committed many wicked things like killing over 80 priests, hunting David, and attempting to kill him 39 times. However, the Bible says God killed Saul, and it was not because of any of these wicked acts. The Bible mentioned that Saul did not seek God. He was unfaithful to God. He consulted a medium. The lesson to learn is that, indeed, as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are God's ways higher than our ways, and God's thoughts than our thoughts. Each one should come out of the bubble of self-deception and allow God to do his talk and come to him simply as children. Pursuing with the introduction of revivals in the Old Testament, Brother Theodore led the Crusaders to read Judges, chapter 2, verses 16 to 19. From the reading, he explained that the idolatry of Israel to the idols of the surrounding nations was not rooted in images, but on the lifestyle, the liberty that these idols allowed their worshippers to have, compared to the holiness, the righteousness, and the discipline imposed to follow God. Indeed, if we were to adapt this passage to our times, we would say, God raised a leader that walks with God, and the church was revived. But when that leader died, the church will go back to loving the world. This is the case with many Pentecostal churches that become Ichabod when the leader dies. The glory departs and people go back to their vomits. The leader then said that there are three key words in the passage: God, leader or elder, and generation. He emphasized the importance of discipleship in consolidating the work of God and triggering revival. Discipling 4 generations consolidates the work of God, and discipling 14 generations triggers revival, the leader noted.
If we are faithful in building men,
Si nous sommes fidèles à bâtir les hommes,
there are convergence, there are spiritual convergence that usher us into the high tide of God's visitations. Who has understood a little?
qui a compris un peu.
If you give God 14 generations, or in the making of disciples, the way you were made a disciple,
Si tu donnes à Dieu 14 générations de disciples formés tels que tu as été toi aussi formé comme disciple,
we can expect a revival.
nous pouvons nous attendre à un réveil.
Four generations consolidate what God has done. 14 generations trigger a new threshold of God.